Hello, everyone. Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerd Ball Podcast. I'm your host, Lorenzo Melcher, coming to you from the office today. And I just want to say, as I say every week, thank you for always liking, sharing, subscribing, downloading to the podcast, doing whatever you can to help the podcast grow. It's greatly appreciated. We're getting numbers up everywhere. We're slowly growing, as I say every week. So keep doing what you're doing. Look for things I learned every Tuesday, and then so you don't miss any random Monday podcasts. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. Also, if you like watching two people, sometimes three people talk to each other, you can go to YouTube, subscribe there. We're everywhere, all over the internet, wherever social media are, just search the Nerd Ball Podcast. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
Hi, this is Jesee Spier, and this is the Nerd Ball Podcast.
This is the Nerd Ball Podcast with Lorenzo Melcher.
Nailed it, Jesse. Thanks for coming on the podcast today.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me.
I know you had to fit it in between, as I'm well aware, fit it in between kids' sports. So I appreciate making time.
Just prior to a soccer game and just after a soccer game. So we caught a good window right now.
So are they doing well? Was it good that you had to play in the morning or bad?
They are in the championship now at 3:40 at 3:45 today. It'll be my let's see, it's a 12U team. My son's 11, and they're in the championship of the Westlake tournament.
Okay, awesome. That's all right. Well, good luck to him.
Yep.
That's great. Jesse, I always start every podcast with what is something you're nerding out about, something you're really into, something to get you away from your job, and in your cases, plenty of phone calls and emails I'm sure you're getting throughout the day. Something you either do by yourself or you've done with forever, or just something to get away from the daily grind.
Yep. So I listened to your recent podcast, and I thought about this question since I listened to the recent one, and I thought, okay, well, if I tell them chasing my kids from sport to sport, even though my job is all about sports, is that really nerding out, or is that just doing the same old? And I was like, well, that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to say chasing my kids from sport to sport.
Yeah, I get that, and that's been a lot of parents who are on here say that as their thing, and I understand that, because if we're not at work, we're usually at a ball field, soccer field, swimming pool, something, watching our child compete in something, which I love, and I'm sure you love it too.
Which actually, I mean, it's so my work is adult sports and my nerding out is kids sports. So yes, I'm just always at a sports venue of some sort.
What are your kids? I know obviously we talked about soccer, but are they into a lot of different sports?
Yeah. So actually yesterday it was kind of fun. It was a banner day. 7:45 at the soccer field to play a soccer game. Sprinted out of there with a basketball bag in the car to go right to a basketball game, and then got the last half of the basketball game, and then immediately from there over to the baseball field to complete the day. So we had three sports, and we showed up, and one of the coaches on the team was talking to my son Adam, and my son said, "Yeah, this is my third sport already," and she looked at him and said, "Adam, it's noon."
That's crazy. Yeah, because it's a lot, and you just try to fit in as best you can, and I'm sure some weekends aren't as lucky where they line up and you're like, hey, what are we missing today? What's more important? Is it a regular season game or a tournament game? And just trying to fit it all in, man.
Oh yeah, we constantly are doing that debate. Actually, Adam, the older one, is trying out for club soccer, which is only going to add to the whole mess. And in order to make some of the club soccer tryouts, he's got to miss some games, either baseball or soccer. So we're always doing weekly. My wife and I will sit there weekly and do the debate as to like, what are we going to get to and what are we not going to get to.
And when my kids were younger, my wife, she'd miss something, or she's like, I don't want to miss anything. I go, as they get older, you're gonna miss something. It's just, yep. And we only have two, so like there's going to be times where you're going to miss something, or you're going to be late, or it is what it is, and everyone will get through it. Everyone will be fine.
Yep. We try our best. And nowadays with all the apps that go along with all the sports teams, it's actually easier to make the decision, then just mark them as not attending or attending, and then we move on.
Yes, that's true. That's true. It does make it pretty easy. We'll get into your job later, but we were talking about your children doing sports and stuff. Were you big into sports as a kid as well?
Yeah, so I talked to my older son. I spend a lot of time in the car with my older son as we're going to and from games, and I'm always telling him, back in my day, yeah. So I grew up playing baseball mostly. I was on 3 or 4 teams a season, so my mom had to do that, and I have an older brother and younger sisters, so she had to do that, chasing all 4 of us around. But my main sports growing up were baseball, and then I also in high school played football and basketball.
What was your favorite?
My senior year of high school football was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I'd say baseball, because I did end up playing a couple of years of baseball in college.
Okay. Did you grow up around here?
No, I actually grew up in Springfield, Ohio, down between Dayton and Columbus.
Oh, yeah.
Not the Springfield Township or the other Springfield.
Yeah, we got familiar with them because we were there. They're not in our region anymore for football, but they were in our region for a while. They were really good football for a while. I don't know, the past probably, 6-7 years. They've been really good, and just putting it on our playoff schedule, like, all right, we might get to them at some point, and here's what we're gonna do. But so what positions did you play in football?
I was a quarterback. I was the ever popular combination of quarterback and linebacker. I pride myself. I tell everybody, and I was leading the team, or I led the team in tackles as a quarterback. And I was like, it was because I was a linebacker as well. But that's not a common combination you see nowadays.
So was it strictly were you guys run heavy offense?
Oh, very much so. We ran the option. Yeah, okay, we ran the option. Yeah. All so there was throwing every fourth quarter if we were down, but that was about it.
We'll play teams like that where it's like, well, as long as we're up in the fourth quarter, it's gonna be very difficult for them to come back, even if we got to be up a couple touchdowns, because that's not what they do. They run the ball, and you gotta stop that. So you grew up in Springfield, and you said you ended up playing baseball in college. Where did you play that at?
I went to Case Western Reserve University. Oh. It's a small D3 school, more well known for its education than it is its sports.
Yeah.
But actually, recently their sports have been pretty good. But it's in Cleveland, Ohio.
How'd you get hooked up with them?
Out of senior year of high school, I'm thinking about where am I going to go to college, and engineering seemed to be the path I was going to pursue. Mm-hmm. And so, being already in Ohio, I looked at what are the good Ohio schools for engineering, and Case is one of the premier. So I ended up going there and got my undergraduate and master's from Case.
And you mentioned you played just a couple years, so you just played, and then you're like, no, I'm done here, or what was that decision?
Yeah, sports at a D3 college are kind of they've gotten more impressive, but at the time it was kind of like, it felt more like a club team. And so I played freshman year, and then I was playing sophomore year and hurt my shoulder, and then I was like, you know what, I'm here for school, I'm not here for sports, so I should probably just make sure I stick to the books.
Well, were you a good student? I know you said you got your master's, but in high school, like throughout high school and at the beginning of college, like, were you
I was a much better student GPA wise in high school.
Okay.
In college, I was a pretty good student. I graduated with like a 3.3 GPA, okay. Mechanical engineering. And so it was good. I would say it was good enough. I got in the case. I got out of Case. I have a degree. Yeah. I got a job right out of college. So I think I did okay.
What was the draw to engineering?
So engineering opens a lot of doors in terms of operations and other jobs that you can get into. Mm-hmm. You don't have to strictly be like a slide rule type engineer, the one with the big glasses and the pocket protector. That's what a lot of people think engineering is. And I quickly learned that engineering is just going to open the door for a lot of different opportunities. And, I'll tell you later when we get to talking about, my work now, how my dad says I'm not an engineer, but
Well, everyone's I should say everyone. There's a lot of people who are scared after college. Like, all right, well, now I have this piece of paper and this diploma. What am I going to do? But you said you got a job right out of college. How did that come about? Because the way you said it seemed like, yeah, it was no thing. I was able to get one right away and go about my business.
So I worked for a company called PCC Airfoils, which is on the east side of Cleveland, and they make parts for jet engines. It's investment casting. It's a manufacturing process called the lost wax process. I don't think it was a matter of fact. I think it was just an expectation coming out of case that, you were hopefully going to find a job. And my master's degree was in engineering and management, and that put me on the path towards, they helped a lot getting jobs and lining up, prospective employers.
When you were deciding to get a master's, was that something somebody was telling you to, like, hey, you're doing this thing, but also maybe add this onto it for reasons such as that?
Yes, it was kind of a hesitation year. Kids now, that don't go right into college call it a gap year.
Yeah.
That was kind of like my gap year after getting my undergraduate degree, was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with an engineering degree.
Yeah, because you said it opens a lot of doors, and I guess in some cases it might be like there might be a flood of things, and you're like, it's too much. Like I don't know, I don't know what to pick here.
Well, yeah. So I mean, it opened a lot of doors, and you can get into a lot of jobs. But like any other 20, 22-year-old, you have an idea what you might want to do, but you're never really sure. And so I actually, out of college, had a couple different, I had that first engineering job, decided I wanted to try consulting, went to a second, left that first company, went to a consulting company, realized consulting and being on the road was not for me. And so then I came back, took a third different job, and then luckily found my way into running the business that I currently run.
So what was appealing to you about consulting? Consulting seems fun for me when it's very specific, and some people might not think consulting. Like, hey, if someone asks me like how to do a podcast, like, all right, I'm going to tell them how I do it, or like, talk about football coaching or whatever. I'm giving them advice on things. That's what consulting seems to me. Can you explain that? I guess in what you did.
Yeah. So the consulting I went to was operations management consulting, but I was so entry level and so green that I don't think I got the true experience of what it was. The upper level managers within that firm, they got to compile all the data and all the all the work that we put together, and they got to present a worthwhile project. While I was so young there that I collected data. I was up till 3 a.m. watching some guy at a stamping plant. So my role there was not the consulting that you and I think of.
and it was worse because you had to be on the road for so long, and you're like, all right, already this job is not the greatest, and I'm gone. It's not.
Yeah, and I actually I had an allergic reaction while I was on the road at one job, and I had to go to the hospital. The allergic reaction was so bad, and I was like, I'm here taking care of myself, 4 hours from home, and nobody here besides the people that I'm there with on the job did I know. And I was like, you know what? I probably got to look for something else. This is the straw that breaks the camel's back.
What were you allergic to?
It was just something in the food that I ate the night before.
Oh, no shit.
I just woke up and I felt all itchy and just like I was a mess. And I went to the hospital and they said, well, what have you done? What have you this? What did that? They gave me some steroids and said, here you go. And I was like, all right, that's it. Okay. And luckily I did start to feel better not long after I was there, but that was the extent of it.
Have you since found out like what you're allergic to?
Oh, no. Growing up, my mom always said I had allergies and she would list, 100 different things that I was allergic to. Whatever tripped at that time, I don't know. It could have been, it could have been anything. It hasn't happened since. So I must have avoided it.
All right, so you this consulting. You said you got was it an engineering job or another engineering job after consulting?
It was actually with a company that Avery Dennison. So most people know Avery Dennison is paper products and labels. The company was it was a pressure sensitive adhesives, which is labels, and they made a lot of parts for housing and automotive. And so actually, I say I found my way into my job that I have now. It was the third round of layoffs at Avery Dennison, and I got laid off from that job. And luckily, in February, I had started Toledo Sport and Social Club, which is the business I run now.
Yep.
And in May or in April, I got laid off. So
Oh,
luckily, I had the forethought or I saw the writing on the wall, and I
yeah.
decided to start Toledo Sport and Social Club in while I was finishing my time there, I guess.
So that's how I remember meeting you for the first time. That was through that, and I think I can't remember exactly when did you start it?
Uh,
What year?
August of 2009 was the first ever leagues. It was the first ever league was kickball,
Yep.
which I know you played,
Yes.
and
Yep.
then followed that same fall with football, co-ed touch football, and then from there it just kind of took off.
So what made you come up with this idea, or did you mirror it after something else? Like what was like, hey, we're gonna do this thing.
I was just good at copying. So out of college, I lived in the Cleveland area, and out of college, I got invited to play co-ed touch football, and I was like, all right, well, sounds fun. I played a lot of intramurals while I was in college, so yeah,
Yeah.
let's try this. Showed up. It was a probably a 10-degree day in Cleveland with a foot of snow on the ground. And I called the girl that invited me to play, and I said, "Are we still playing today?" She said, "Oh yeah, we play in all the types of weather." I was like, "Okay." So I showed up, played in a foot of snow. It was great. It was adults, young professionals, 21 to 40, basically,
Yeah.
out there playing 8-on-8 touch football. And actually, I met my wife that day, but she didn't become my wife until much later. But
Yeah.
I met her as a sub on her team. So
Oh,
kind of the beginning of where we are now.
that's how. So I signed up to play kickball, and I asked one of my friends at the time. I go, hey, I'm joining a team. I don't know who these people are, but they need players. Do you want to play with me? And he's like, yeah, it was my friend Corey, and so we started playing on this kickball team, and he ends up same thing. Like that's who the girl, one of the girls that was on the team. He ended up married, and they have children now together. So
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I do
yeah,
remember that. Yep.
yeah. So that was like in my brain, I'm like, all right, yeah, this seems fun. This is cool. We signed up. You did. It was a great. It was fun every time. It was a good league, and I didn't even think like beyond that. Like, what is this thing going to be? So when you started this, did you have an inkling of like, all right, yes, I'm going to start with kickball and touch football, but after that, like this is my grand plan.
Yeah, so I got to give credit to clevelandplays.com. That's the sport and social club that was in Cleveland that I played in. And I first played co-ed touch football, then I played beach volleyball with them, and then I played indoor volleyball. And obviously I'm going to their website and I see all that they offer and different leagues and different ways to get involved. And I was like, you know what? This is a pretty good idea. I wonder if I can do this somewhere else, because I didn't want to be competition
Yeah,
to, my first time ever starting a job or starting my own business. I didn't want to be competition to who I learned from.
yeah.
So my wife is actually originally from Maumee. So even though I was in the Cleveland area, I was like, you know what? Let me look around at the next closest big cities to Cleveland. And because my wife was from Toledo, I was like, all right, well, let's try Toledo.
That's so wild. It's seems so scary too. You're like, all right, obviously it was almost, yeah, you started it and then you got laid off, but then after once you get laid off, you're like, all right, well, I guess this is it now, and I got to dive into this.
Well, the beauty of that, and I actually like telling that story, in more detail. I like taking so Avery Dennison paid me a severance. They paid me. I was able to claim unemployment for a little bit, and all while doing that, all I did was take the severance money, turned it right over to my website developer and said, hey, I need a website because I'm doing this full bore now.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way a lot of people can actually, in order to start your own business, you really just got to jump in. It's tough to ever, try to do it on the side, because on the side, you just don't give it the effort that you would if it's what you have to rely on.
Yeah, you're right. Like if this is like, all right, I need to buy milk, so I better get this thing going, or I better make sure that someone's there on the field umpiring, or I better, it is that's definitely definitely put your feet to the fire a little bit.
Yeah, and the growth of Toledo Sport and Social Club really took off early on because I was able to be there all hours of every day, all day. Now, so let's see, 16 years later, two boys later, I'm not able to be there as much, but I found great people to be able to run the leagues in my absence. And I still wish I could do more, like more leagues, more social events, more just engagement opportunities, but there's only so many hours in the day.
What is how many offhand? How many sports and how many things are you up to right now?
At one point, I was up to, there were 13 different options.
Okay.
Anything with ball in the name, we were playing. Now I'm down to, I think I have 8 primary ones. It's co-ed touch football, beach volleyball, indoor volleyball, basketball, golf, bowling, and I know I'm forgetting something. Yeah, but that's a good list right there. That's what we're doing right now.
When did you just like, or how do you decide, or I get maybe the people decide for you and don't sign up, but how do you decide not to offer kickball anymore or soccer or whatever, that things that drop off?
Mainly it's access to fields. It's
Mm,
access to places to play. And it's mainly access to places to play. And then it's having the right people to run it in my absence. If I'm going to run a kickball league the same night I'm running beach volleyball, well, I have to be able to be at either one.
yeah.
And if I don't have somebody that I can, put together at kickball in my absence, then I struggle to be able to offer it. So it's really a hiring thing, but and it's like I said, access to
Fields.
good places where people want to play.
I would imagine that that's the difficult part too. Is like, yeah, like you said, like, well, we got people and we got people that want to pay money for these things, but we just don't have a place. And then I'm sure there are certain rules or people you got to talk to or whatever that allow you to, use the facilities for whatever price that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I first got started, it was a lot tougher. I'd go to some place and I'd say, "Hey, I want to run adult basketball," and they'd say, "Yeah, get in line. Our gym time is really busy, and we've
Yeah.
got this youth league, this youth league, this youth league, and this church league that are all ahead of you." So as adult sports leagues, even though we shouldn't be forgotten because we're adults, youth sports leagues, as we talked about earlier, they are all over the place, and so they take precedence oftentimes with places to play.
And how do you deal with, people who, uh, like you approach them about this topic and they just blow you off, or like, or from one year to the next, then they decide not to do it anymore. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I know someone that, we've kind of dealt with here in Perrysburg when you had issues going on here, but like how do you deal with that kind of stuff? Is it just one of those, okay, well, I guess we'll just move on to the next one.
I actually kind of forgot about that until you just brought it up. Thanks for turning the blade again. Yeah, no, it's uh, as long as I'm not currently in season, then I just go and try to make contact with other places and make it work. If I'm in season, well, that's impacting business, so I got to figure something out. But
Has that happened? Has that happened where like in mid-season, whoever the organizers are, you're like, no, we're done. We're not doing it anymore.
I don't want to necessarily get into it.
You
But
can say yes or no, and that's fine.
yeah, the answer is yes, and
Okay,
I think
okay. That's fine.
I think you know what happened.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. That's what sucks too, is like you have these agreements, whether it's a handshake agreement or on paper, and then someone just like, no, we're done with you. It's got to be frustrating. Like, especially because I know your leagues and I know you. Like, there aren't terrible things that happen. Like, it'd be one thing if like you're bringing along these groups to different fields and facilities, and routinely they're like, well, there's another fight, or this car got broken into, or this was vandalized. But you
And
have a good group.
that is the big fear. Whenever when I first got started and I told everybody I was doing adult sports leagues, they were like, oh, that's fights, that's beer, that's this, that's that. And I was like, well, yes, I have a beer mug in my logo, but it's controlled. Yes, it's adults and maybe they'll get heated, but I think a lot of people that play in my leagues, they understand that I don't tolerate that. That's not what we're here for. We're here for fun. We're here for, just getting out and relaxing. Everybody who's playing in these leagues has a job to get to the next day. And so I'm just trying to be their recreation, and I want it to be fun for everybody. So anybody who starts making it not fun for others, kindly gets asked not to be around anymore.
Is there a favorite? Or do you play on any of these leagues?
I do. I actually still play co-ed touch football.
Okay.
Now, I'll admit I'm 44, so I'm not quite as good as I used to be. And actually, I will not be leading in tackles because I purposely I ask younger players that are more athletic than me to come and play on my team, and I put them on defense, and so I just throw the ball.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? As a veteran, like yourself, that's what you should do. That's it.
Yeah, so I do enjoy still playing co-ed touch football. This is I started playing when I was 22, so I've played as many years of co-ed touch, half as many years of my life of playing co-ed touch football. So I just throw the ball around, and it's fun to be out there. I enjoy a lot of times, and anytime I'm at a league, I just kind of look around and I say, had I not started this, I wonder what these people would be doing at this time of day. What would they be doing on this day? Would they be out being, enjoying friends and enjoying competition? Because I tell people a lot, once you are done playing organized sports, like as you're younger, there's not a lot of opportunities to compete in life. Like how do you compete every day? And that's a good thing to have every once in a while.
Oh, absolutely. Like it's one thing to go to a job and whatever your job is, and you're there for that specific reason. But to be able to compete, even if it's something like darts or bowling or
Yep.
football, basketball, cards, like it is a thing to like you're scratching that itch for people who would just go home and watch TV and scream at their television because their baseball team is doing poorly or whatever,
Yep.
like, so it is I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad you think about that way, because it is an important part of the city where people can get out and recreate and have fun in a safe place.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things, being able to provide a space for people to compete. And then the other big story, or the other thing I say when I'm at leagues, is when I'm facing one direction and I can hear behind me cheers and like laughing and just like the sounds of people having fun. That's when I know I've done the right thing.
Yeah, you're right, because it could be a different sound, and now you're dealing with something entirely different.
Yes, exactly.
What is your favorite sport to watch?
Well, my favorite sport, beach volleyball is just a lot of fun, especially our venue is awesome. We're right down there on the waterfront.
Yeah.
We're looking at the Toledo skyline. We've got the Mudhead Stadium right across the water. And when all the courts are full, and especially like when all the courts are full and we've got the transition between like the 7:30 and 8:30 game times, and you've got people coming, people going, people high-fiving each other, that's probably my favorite to be around at that time, is just because the environment and everything that goes into it.
Yeah, it is. I drove through there last night, and I just expected you to have a league there, and I drove through, and there was 4 people. I was like, oh, there's nothing going on.
Friday. So it is still a public park at some hours. It has to remain a public park at some hours. So Fridays and Saturdays, those are also tough days to get people to commit to playing.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And so Fridays and Saturdays, you will see it empty, but every other day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday, you will see close to 300 people there every one of those nights.
That's awesome. That's so cool, and it's again, just to give that outlet for people is important. When you were starting this thing, I mentioned before, like I don't know how many, like what we mentioned the sports, but as far as the hundreds of people that actually play all these things, did you envision this thing being as big as it is and long lasting for, you said 16 years, I think. Like, is this what you thought it was going to be?
I sure hoped so. Being an engineer, I made projections, I made pro forma statements and things like that. And I basically I said, all right, I know what Cleveland has going on. I know the size of Toledo compared to Cleveland is only a percentage. So then if I only get a percentage of what Cleveland has going on, will I be able to call this a full-time job? Because that was the goal, was
Yeah.
can I make it a full-time job? And luckily, yes, there's enough participants that play in the leagues, and I'm busy enough, just managing all the leagues. Plus, I've added, my brother and I bought the old fun spot over in Oregon and
Yeah.
turned it into Skyway Recreation Center. So we turned it into a multi-purpose gymnasium. So I've added more to my job.
Yeah.
But luckily, yeah, there's enough people in Toledo that are interested in playing, that sign up, that it is able to be called a full-time job.
How do you keep people that maybe they keep themselves away, but if it's like, hey, we signed up for this thing, but he's on like a do not fly list, so to speak.
There's only a couple on that list.
Okay, all right.
Most people, if there is an issue, it gets resolved like within the teams. If I've got to get involved, I'll hear both sides and I'll get involved as I need to. Um, there's only a couple people that don't recognize afterwards that they are adults. They've got jobs to go back to, and that everybody out there should be treated fairly. Most people, I just say, look, can you apologize? Can you apologize and actually truly mean it? And if you can, then we just move on.
Yeah.
You know,
I know you've refed or umpired or been a judge at, especially when you first started, you were doing some of that stuff. Would you rather do that kind of stuff for adult leagues or kid leagues?
ooh, that's a tough one. Uh, so at least in the position that I'm in, because anything Toledo Sport and Social Club ends with me.
Yeah.
At least with the adults, I can make a decision and know that it's final and it's done. Whereas if I would, like, I actually early on, I got calls about, can I offer kids leagues through Toledo Sport and Social Club? And I was like, if I ever needed to grow bigger, I probably could.
Yeah.
But do I want to deal with the parents?
Yeah.
And that was always the question. And so I will say what's the words? I would much rather, yeah, I'd much rather do adult sports than youth sports. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I think because, being a parent with kids that play sports, and, my son plays baseball, and I never, because I used to be a travel baseball umpire, I still do it every once in a while. I never say anything to the umpires. Now, even if they're terrible, I never make because I know I didn't like it. I don't think it's anything that ever should be done. When I was the head coach of my daughter's softball team, I would always tell my parents and the other coaches, like, we do not yell at the umpire. If you have an issue, you can come talk to me, but don't say anything to the umpire. So I cannot stand that stuff. So I'm guessing running adult leagues, at least you're not with adults, you can talk to them as adults, and they're not blinded by the fact that their kid is the one playing, which changes a lot of parents.
Yep. I mean, I've gone full circle, right? I used to be the athlete that played, so I would question a call, but I luckily, I guess I was coached right from the beginning, where my coaches said, you don't challenge the call, you don't do that. So I've never been one much to challenge calls or fight, against a call. But I went from the player to now the person running it. And on the other hand, I still coach my sons. I'm one of the coaches for my son's baseball team. So I see it all different ways. And I actually just yesterday in a baseball game, a kid got struck out and he was walking back to the dugout saying it wasn't a strike. It wasn't a strike. And I said, it was close enough for the umpire to call it a strike. So we got to be swinging.
Yep.
And that was it. I just said, that's it.
Yep. And when I would coach softball, they do this or make faces or be mad or whatever. I'm like, look, you are putting yourselves in there, because it was a lot of, you didn't even swing the bat. Like,
yep.
You don't let them give you the choice. I'd much rather you swing and strike out than stare at it, like, so. But yeah, having conversations with parents, when I was an umpire, I think I was an umpire for a while, and I threw out a couple of parents. I gave them options though. I would talk to the coach first and say, hey, go deal with your parents, please. And then I talk to the parents, but they're irrational because their kid is out there, and they feel like you did something personally against their kid. So they're going to be mad at you,
Yep. I enjoy watching sports. I enjoy watching sports at all levels. And it's funny, once you've refereed or once you've umpired, I've talked to a number of people that they actually watch now what the umpire or what the referee is doing during the game, as opposed to like some of the action. And they're looking at it and saying, if I were in his shoes, if I were in her shoes, how would I be dealing with this? And so it is interesting when you see the other side of all the situations, knowing that, your history and what you've come with.
I always think parents should have to volunteer to be a coach at some point in their children's lives, or referee, umpire, something, even if it's one season, 1 year, just so they can see what that feels like, or see it from a different angle, or see that lady or man screaming at you. And because again, it puts it in perspective. I've seen those people, and I definitely don't want to be one of those people.
Yep. I would absolutely support that of everybody, just that one time. And even in my adult leagues, every once in a while I get questioned, or I see my referees get questioned, and I immediately, like, I was jokingly carrying around like whistles at one point, and I said, all right, you want to challenge it? Here, just referee for me. Yeah. And I didn't get a whole lot of volunteers.
I bet you did. I never had an issue with parents questioning or coaches questioning me, as long as they did it how they're supposed to do it. Call time, come out, ask your question. If whatever, if the other umpire didn't see it differently than I did, then I say, well, here's the call, I had it. And then okay, I don't agree with you, but thank you for checking, and go back to the dugout. There's so many yellers and screamers, and I just, yeah.
Yep. And I know you well enough to know that, like, if there was a call that you knew you got wrong, or if there was a call I knew I got wrong, and I even tell my officials, I'm like, look, if you're not confident in your call, but you made a call, then just tell the person, look, I may have screwed up. I may, like, let there be known that you believe there's a possibility that the call could have been made wrong.
Yep.
But it's a call, like, that's part of sport, and you got to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's happened before, where I was like, even like, look, this is what I called because this is what I saw. If his foot was in a different spot or whatever, but this is what I saw. And, like I said, if you can explain yourself, you'll be fine. So Toledo Sports Social Club, what's the website for that? I'll make sure to put it in the show notes too.
It's very simple. It used to be Toledo Sport and Socialclub.com, but now it's just ToledoSSC.com.
Oh, perfect. And you got leagues. I know it says Toledo, but there's as far as where you play, you're kind of all over the burbs and stuff, or have you changed?
Yeah, we've got leagues in Maumee. Our golf league is over in Bedford Hills, across the border, actually in Michigan. We've got leagues all over the area. So when I say Toledo, I'm just talking the general area. We've got beach volleyball leagues for the summer, are open for registration. And actually, just now looking at the calendar, I've got our big charity mud volleyball tournament, which I have to open registration for in 6 days.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll make sure to put all that in the show notes so people can check it out. If a simple question came up to you, it said, hey, what can I expect if I sign up to play a sport in a Toledo Sport and Social Club?
Well, I hope you have a good time, first of all, but it's, most leagues are 8 to 10 weeks of league play, in that sport. Game times are always after work hours, and it's hopefully a good time. I originally did have the ability, like when you played, I had more ability to do individual signups. Now we kind of require team signups. It's just it became too cumbersome to try to put together teams anymore on our end.
Yeah.
But luckily there's enough strong captains out there to go make teams.
Yeah, I would imagine it's like it's one thing to say, yeah, sign your team up, but yeah, when I signed up as an individual, if you get like, I'm sure you'd get a bunch of those. You're like, all right, we're trying to figure out where to put this person.
Well, and yeah, and I felt bad because there were a couple seasons in a row where I'd have 8 people sign up, and you need probably 10 to 12 for a team. And I was like, what do I do? Do I keep them? What do I do? And then it got even tougher with beach volleyball because you had different skill levels, different nights of the week, and somebody would sign up for only one. And I was like, you know what? I can't pair them up and manage all the rest of the teams that already exist. So I was like, I have a free agent post. There's a free agent posting ability on the Toledo Sport and Social Club website. And then there's also a Facebook group for Toledo Sport and Social Club subs and free agents.
Oh, okay.
And that's the big way that I encourage people now to be found. And I scroll those every once in a while, and I see tons of people. Hey, I just moved to the area. I played this in the past. I just want to get involved. And I find out a couple weeks later that that's how they got involved. Is they posted, they got picked up, and now they're out there playing. And hopefully they now have 15 new friends.
Yeah. Or in your case and my friend Corey's case, a significant other in kids.
Yes.
Oh shoot, there's one more thing. Oh yeah, you mentioned your staff. You've hired people. How many staff do you have?
There's 3 primarily that are they're part-time.
Yeah.
They basically just run the leagues for me. They are the eyes and the ears, and they are the authority at leagues. But then I've also, I hire umpires and other things, as needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jesse, I appreciate you coming on here. I know it was funny when, obviously I signed up years ago, and then we met again when I took over the International Park, or Metro Parks took over International Park. And I think Ruth was like, yeah, I'm supposed to meet with Jesse. And I was like, I think I know Jesse. And yep. Sure shit, I did. So you've been great with me, being part of International Park and kind of holding down the fort there in that volleyball court. And you're a great communicator. And sometimes I feel bad because I feel like I let you down on some things, but we try to do our best to get everything.
We had water the next day, so we were good.
Whenever you call, I'm like, gosh, I hope I can help him immediately.
Hey, you got it solved the next day, so we were good. It was still 40 degrees, so not a whole lot of people were washing off their feet anyway.
Well, again, thanks for everything you do for the city, for all the people around here, and I'll make sure to put the website and anything in the show notes for everyone to find it. So thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. If you want to reach out or be on the show, just search the Nerdball Podcast on any social media. If you want to email us, that is thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, there's always YouTube, so you can go on there, subscribe to the Nerdball Podcast, and watch the podcast every week. As always, thanks to Real JP Multimedia, Cuddlefish Graphics, Big Daddy Graphics, and Perrysburg Junior High STEM Lab for always supporting the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.